So here we are again. I just had this random thought. I've had this conversation with a few people that I know that have actually been or currently are in law enforcement. And it's the whole 40 caliber sucks and 9mm rocks argument. I remember a time when 9mm was considered puny and it sucked. Yes, this is a kind of like a tongue-in-cheek rant about internet gun experts. Then, 40 caliber was awesome. Well, right after Sandy Hook, the supply of ammo really dried up. And the ammunition that they could get was fairly expensive. Since 9mm is NATO caliber, military caliber, it was still available, especially to the government. So, folks, contrary to belief, it isn't that 40 caliber suddenly started to suck and 9mm suddenly got awesome. It was a matter of logistics, what was cheaper and what was more readily available. Now I'm noticing since, internet gun experts have been pushing how fashionable 9mm is and just how awful 40 caliber sucks, I am discovering it's starting to get reversed now that the current ammunition crisis is at hand. Suddenly 40 caliber is available and 9mm is not. Now it makes me wonder if some of these internet gun experts are suddenly going to come out with 9mm sucks and how good 40 caliber is. I am of the belief if you do your part, whether you have 9mm, 40, 45, 10mm, if you have a decent service cartridge, if you, the shooter, are doing your part, the round is going to do its. It's all about shot placement. Yes, bigger caliber means bigger hole. But again, if you can't hit nothing vital, it's not going to do its job. If you can't hit the target, it's definitely not going to work. So, that being said, I would love to be a fly on the wall and watch these so-called experts have to eat crow, then suddenly come up with a reason why 40 caliber suddenly rocks and 9mm now sucks. This has been going on back and forth for decades. And there's always some expert to come out and argue whatever point is the flavor of the day or whatever their sponsors are pushing. I could go into the caliber rant if y'all would like, so here it goes. For the old men in the room that believe 45 ACP is the be-all, end-all caliber, yes, it is an impressive caliber very close in, which that's where pistol combat obviously occurs. 230 grain subsonic, yeah, it works. When I carry my 45 on duty, it's loaded with 185 grain plus P. It's big caliber and it's supersonic. Best of both worlds. But back in the day, you had the revolver crowd that said automatics suck. How many people these days do you see carrying a revolver? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, 9mm comes out. I remember back in the 80s, the Wonder 9s hit the market. The Glock 17 had hit the market. Around 86, the Beretta 92 hit the market. Smith & Wesson had automatic 9mm for a minute. They just, for some reason, didn't really catch on. You had the Smith & Wesson 59 series, and I don't care what anybody says, those were pretty good handguns. And then that shootout in Florida happens where that guy got shot 14 times and the guy still managed to kill 2 police officers or something like that. I know I don't have the facts down packed, but down pat, but I'm sure you get the idea. Oh yeah, and the guy still managed to run 2 city blocks before he bled out. Yes, he was hit 14 times, and from what I have read, the majority of the impacts on him were to the extremities. In other words, arm hits, leg hits, or they might have been gut shots that weren't immediately fatal. He was mortally wounded, but he just didn't die immediately. And that will be a discussion for a later time about what did that guy say? It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. So then, they can't go back to 45 because all the experts spent all this time urinating on 45, how awful it was and how great 9mm was, that all of a sudden they're caught flat-footed by this shooting. So then 10mm was born. 10mm is an awesome cartridge. But in my opinion, it's really too stupid powerful for duty use. If you're going to get the benefit of a 10mm, full power 10mm round, you're going to have over penetration issues, or so I've been told. I have fired a few 10s, but I've never owned one. So out of an emotional response, the 40 caliber was born. It's kind of like the best of both worlds between a 45 and a 9mm. You get bigger caliber than 9mm. You have a bigger bullet, but it's not quite as big as 45, so you still can carry a decent amount of ammunition. For example, I have a Smith & Wesson M&P in 45, and its magazines compared to what my Beretta 96, which is a 40, the size comparison is the magazines are huge, and they only hold 10 rounds. Obviously, it's a bigger round. That's the facts about 40 caliber. 40 caliber is nothing more than a trimmed down 10mm. Anyway, getting back to the subject at hand, man, if I ever get my Trump check, it looks like I'm getting screwed on that deal so far. IRS website is saying they can't verify my eligibility. Really? They didn't have any problem verifying the money I paid them last year. So, yeah, I think if I suddenly come and do some dough, I'm going to buy up some 40. Anyway, y'all have a good night. Something to think about.